Hello everybody. Today I would like to talk about a tendency in argumentation that people who are for objective morality tend to do, what they tend to do. So this goes for Hoppe and Molyneux, both certainly. So the thing they do is when they talk about economics and arguments from economics, I feel that they tend to misrepresent or give a very narrow representation of what they call the argument from effect. They tend to describe a utilitarian thinking, which is sort of this social utility thinking, where they represent the other side as being that we are trying to calculate optimal happiness for society, something like that. But they have to be very careful to find out if that is actually the other what the other people are arguing for, or maybe not the other thing that other people are arguing for, but to make sure that they describe carefully what other people's opinion on this issue are. You can't just say this is the only alternative to their objective morality, and then give people their own view. You have to be more objective about what other people are saying. And this is interesting because it turns out that Ludwig von Mises and Henry Hazlitt did not advocate the kind of thing that, for example, Molyneux is talking about. So they're not carefully looking at what other people are saying. And I will illustrate this with an article by Stefan Molyneux that he published on Lou Rockwell in 2005 called "Forget the Argument from Efficiency." And so this is precisely what he does. He says this is what the argument from efficiency is, and he uses it interchangeably, or sometimes he calls it the argument from efficiency, other times he calls it the argument from effect. And I'm going to give you some quotations, and I'm going to criticize them because I think it shows that he's not, at least then, he didn't know what the other people who call themselves consequentialists or something like that are, what they're actually saying. So what I'm trying to say is my reasoning from economics is not some sort of social utility. I'm not trying to aim for general happiness for everybody else. My analysis starts with myself. And I think that property rights based on production and trading is beneficial for myself. Property rights for other people, because I think I can try to utilize the division of labor. And all the rest of the economic laws that we can discover. So I'll give you a quotation by him. So he says, for three main reasons, freedom can never be won by arguing for economic efficiency. So it's a very, very strong statement. He says such efficiency is always debatable, inevitably rests on technical details obscure to most people, and is one of the topics most subject to government misinformation. In Canada, arguing that a free market will produce lower costs in healthcare, for instance, always brings the contrary example of the United States and its high spending on medical costs. Refuting this misleading statistics requires exhaustive level of detail which the listener has likely never heard before, and which are easy to dismiss. Arguing that healthcare was cheaper before the government got involved is also unproductive, since people can easily argue that technology was far less advanced in the past, or that there were fewer old people, or less life-extending procedures and pills. The argument from efficiency is never conclusive, since it requires statistics, a mountain of specialized knowledge, enormous patience, and it can be derailed at any time by false, missing, or incomplete information. So what I think of this is that it looks like the way here that he is describing that he has argued to other people is not very Austrian at all. This more looks like kind of mainstream libertarian, really trying to have this idea of just try to optimize things a little bit. Yeah, government can be a little bit cheaper. He does not go to the root of the matter that, for example, where prices come from. And Austrians discover, and even other economic schools do the same thing. We start with subjective value. This ends up in prices. This ends up in calculation, entrepreneurship. And so you don't need, he used the word statistics. You don't need statistics to illustrate economics. And anytime government intervenes, and you don't have private property based on production and division of labor, you're going against people's individual subjective values. So for me personally, I don't want somebody going against the way I'm trying to fulfill my values. And so it's not that government schools or government roads or government anything is less efficient. No, it's that it's completely counter to my interests. And all these economic laws that we can find through praxeology. That's a grand understanding of how society operates. Other people don't have that. Most other people don't have that understanding. So what I would like is that people gradually gain that understanding. And that is not easy. But the fact that it's not easy is just a fact of reality. People have been propagandized their whole lives. I'll read on a little bit more. He says, explaining to someone why the California energy crisis resulted not from privatization, but state control, requires at least half an hour of lecturing on economics, history, and regulation. Not a pleasant prospect. So here again he says he finds it very difficult to argue with people. Well, I think the main reason is because he doesn't, at that point at least, he didn't understand economics well enough to argue powerfully for it. And at the same time he shows frustration. Well, yeah, people really lack a good understanding of these things. But that does not make the situation impossible. In fact, I mean, one smart tactic is to first try to find the people who actually are open enough and able to learn about these things. That would be your first audience. But even still, this is not going to be easy. So, but that goes for any kind of anything you're trying to convince people for that they don't already believe in. And even if the listener makes it through to the conclusion, he or she has just learned an interesting piece of history. He will not have the ability to extrapolate these facts into general principles of economics, even with help. So this is he makes a claim. He says, if you try to explain economics to another person, they will not have the ability to extrapolate further. There's no basis for him to say such a thing. It's a way too strong statement, saying that people cannot possibly learn economics. That's just ridiculous to say such a thing. It's way too strong of a statement, and we saw that how he started out as well. He says for three main reasons, freedom can never be won through a certain tactic. So I don't think that's very humble. He goes on. He says at some point, your knowledge will falter, and you will have to promise to get back to her. This is why so many freedom advocates rush from books to lectures to websites for evidence, and risk turning themselves into terminal bores. It is an impossible quest. Well, again, I think this shows, in one sense, his inability of understanding economics at that point, while at the same time, there is good reason to try to keep learning, even if it's from different fields. It first of all helps you grasp the economic insights stronger and stronger by simply applying them to different fields. And plus, there is a mountain of knowledge that we have that has to be learned in society about a lot of fields. But the thing is, once you get economics, you can just apply them. You don't need facts. You don't need evidence. But those two things can actually make illustrating your economic principles quite easy. So at this point, I've learned so much things, and as you probably have as well, about so many fields of different industries. But with the economic insights, it's very easy. You know exactly what to look for, and even if another person knows more about a field, you can calmly ask a person some questions. And if he doesn't know the facts that you find relevant, then you have just illustrated that he doesn't quite know everything there is to know about it. So I'll end with quotations for a moment there. What I further want to say about this is that what is the premise of this article? He wants to try to convince other people. He wants to make them, well, in this case, he wants to make them anarcho-capitalists. And but this is the real question. Is he convinced of anarcho-capitalism because of economics or because of morality? And here he's reasoning with the listener. He's talking about economics, but then suddenly he jumps to the fact, well, you can't convince people of this fact. Well, the real question should be what his basis is for that belief. And that's what he should be arguing with his audience member, not the fact that we have to convince the mainstream people. Because if we ourselves can be convinced through economics, then we should use those means. What he's showing here is that he doesn't think economics is related to the issue. And if for an individual who is supposed to be the reader of this article, if that person is convinced of anarcho-capitalism because of economics, then what he's going through in his article here, that person clearly doesn't agree with that. That person does think it's possible. He says it's impossible. That person does think it's possible to be convinced through economics. So I also think he really shows that he doesn't understand Austrian economics, which raises the question why Lou Rockwell allowed this article on his website in the first place. Because I thought Lou Rockwell was an Austrian. Okay, further, Stefan Malou says, the second reason that this approach fails is that people will never accept the risk of wrenching social change for the sake of theoretical economic benefits somewhere down the road. So he brings up this same point in his book from 2 years later called Universally Preferable Behavior, where he puts forth this idea that the economic benefits of a free market society are down the road. I don't think those benefits would be down the road. For example, if just one simple change, licensing, if licensing restrictions would be completely pulled back in any society, the advantages of that would be immense, and they would realize very, very quickly. It, depending on the industry, some industries the advantage would take weeks, like food industry. In others it may take a year or 3 years. But that's not like the kind of in the long run we're all that Keynes says. It's not that kind of a long run. So individuals can care about that. Some individuals don't care about 3 years down the line, but I do care, and I think many people would care. And then the third reason. Let's see. People are generally terrified of fundamental change, and for good reason. A possible increase in economic efficiency will never motivate them to put their entire way of life at terrible risk. So again, this kind of economic efficiency. No, the Austrian case goes much, much deeper. The third reason why the efficiency argument can never win is that people don't really care about economic efficiency very much. 2 quick examples. The first is parenthood. How could one argue that having children is economically efficient? They are expensive, exhausting, and time-consuming, and few of the benefits of having children can be measured by economic statistics. This is an example of what generally motivates people, not economic efficiency, but something else. So this is a very, very, very clear example. This is not at all the opposing argument from Austrians who call themselves consequentialists or utilitarians. At least some of them definitely do not use this kind of a reasoning. And he doesn't represent that view at all in his early writing here. No, it's not my argument that people should care about GDP numbers. So the reason I wanted to bring up this article specifically is he wrote these articles in 2005 and posted them on the Rockwell, and subsequently he made podcasts of those articles, and to this very day they are essentially one of the first articles or podcasts that people start off with when they start listening to Free Domain Radio. So this is how they start off. Before Molyneux introduces his moral theory, this is how he presents what the argument from economics is. And I think that's really problematic. I think it's completely contra to Austrian economics, which he shows that he doesn't quite understand. And then, right, so why hasn't he by now retracted those podcasts? Or if he doesn't do that, make some kind of a statement about that. Show that this is not, he claims it can never be won through economic efficiency. So there needs to be clarification there. There was something else I wanted to say about that. Yeah. Anyway, I probably said enough about that. Now, some other things I wanted to mention is based on my last video, I got donations, which was very nice, which makes me excited to keep making more, to keep putting more energy into all my online activities. And as promised, I put the amounts that I received on the donation page, so you can see how much I'm getting or how little. And based on that, you can decide if you think, well, maybe he needs more to do what he likes to do and what maybe you'd like me to do. And lastly, we've started, me and my girlfriend, on Viva Voluntary, a store, which is an Amazon store, but I've tried to collect all relevant things that you may also be interested in. And so there are books on economics, books on children, a few books on morality, one by Mises and one by Hazlitt. Libertarian movies, so DVDs and Blu-rays. I've put also on some products that are used for podcasting, like microphones, good microphones to use, a webcam, a camera that I'm using now. And so anything that I thought can be helpful for the audience that I have. And so if you buy there, you're helping me with the things that I do. Okay,